This film is a favourite of mine because it's from one of my favourite directors, Billy Wilder, and as a result it's a very funny film. It's also a very dramatic and very moving film, which is typical of the kind of films that he made. It's also a very authentic film. It's from 1953 and it's Stalag 17. The film was adapted from a stage play of the same name. The stage play was written by Donald Bevan and Edmund Trzynski. They were prisoners of war in Stalag 17B, a prisoner of war camp in Austria during World War II. The stage play was very popular, very successful, and as a result it caught the eye of Billy Wilder. Billy Wilder was someone who'd had a great deal of commercial success with a film called Sunset Boulevard, and as a result of that he became his own producer on subsequent films. The film he made before this was a film called Ace in the Hole, which was, while a critical success and a film that was very, very well made, it was a box office bomb. So Billy was really looking for something that would be commercially successful. Now, Billy Wilder began his life in film as a writer, moved into directing because he felt a lot of directors made a mess of his scripts. And for the rest of his film career, he basically worked as a writer-director. He did, with the help of Edward Blum, adapt this play and made it a much more filmic and much more visual experience. As an example, a critical scene in the story is where the informer within the prisoner of war camp is revealed, and on stage that's revealed through dialogue and through on-stage action. In the film it's revealed through a visual technique, the use of a loop in the cord that hangs above the chess table. Now, the key character in this story is Sergeant Sefton. Charlton Heston was originally thought of for the role, but because the role was going to be portrayed in a fairly negative light, Heston pulled out. The role was then offered to Kirk Douglas, who had worked with Billy Wilder on Ace in the Hole. Douglas also knocked it back, however subsequently said it was the biggest mistake of his career not to take the role. It was William Holden that emerged as the director's choice. William Holden also didn't want to play this particular role, but because of his contract he was forced into it. He was asked to go and see the stage play, but he only lasted until the end of the first act when he walked out. He was subsequently encouraged to read the script, but even after that he wasn't particularly enamoured with taking on this particular part. Now, interestingly and perhaps somewhat fortuitously, this was the first reteaming between William Holden and Billy Wilder since the very successful and groundbreaking Sunset Boulevard. The other notable actor and perhaps performance in this film was by Otto Preminger. Preminger was largely a director, but he did do a number of dramatic roles. Preminger was someone who was notorious for treating his actors quite poorly. He would often shout at them if they were late for a shoot, if they messed up their lines. And Preminger himself was not particularly good at sticking to his lines. He did promise Billy Wilder, when shooting commenced on this film, that every time he mucked up his lines, he would give Billy Wilder a jar of caviar. And Billy Wilder said by the end of the shoot, he had a mountain of this stuff. On the first day of the shoot, Billy Wilder made it clear to everyone that the script was to be adhered to verbatim. He made this point in particular to William Holden and Otto Preminger. William Holden, in particular, wanted the lines to be changed to make his character, Sefton, be much more likeable. And Otto Preminger had a tendency to ham it up. The other interesting thing is that this film was shot sequentially. That's unusual for films, but it was done for a reason. It was done to keep the actors guessing. And as a result, a lot of the reactions during the film of surprise are actual surprise, where the actors themselves are finding out which way the story in the film is actually going. I mentioned this film's authenticity. There were 9 prisoners of war who had bit parts in this particular film, but their real role was actually subject matter experts. So they understood what these prisoner of war barracks looked like, what the camps looked like, the way things actually ran. And their input has given this film certainly a sense of realism and a great deal of credibility. Beyond the look of the film, even very minor details like the dog tags, they're very authentic to what was used during the Second World War. But what also gave the film a great deal more realism is that many of the minor roles were taken on by people who had played those roles on the stage. So there was a real familiarity there, which you would expect from people who'd spent a long period of time in a prisoner of war camp, living very close to each other. So this film was the hit that Billy Wilder expected. It was really the biggest financial success of his career. And Billy did expect certainly a dividend from that, some financial share of the profits. But the accountants at Paramount said to him, because Ace in the Hole had done so poorly and lost so much money, they were going to extract those losses before Billy started to get any of the profits. Also, this film was due to be released in West Germany, and West Germany was a very important market for Hollywood at the time, and executives at Paramount asked Billy Wilder to change the guards from Germans to Polish people, which again angered Billy Wilder, and probably a combination of that, but also the way in which he was treated financially, he left Paramount after this film. This has also been a very influential film. And for anyone who has watched it, who does watch it, you'll certainly see parallels with the TV show Hogan's Heroes. There are a lot of similarities. One of the key characters in the film is Sergeant Johann Schultz, and there's obviously a very strong resemblance with the Hogan's Hero character, Sergeant Hans Schultz, not just in name. The authors of the stage play Stalag 17 actually sued the producers of the TV series for plagiarism. That being the writers, had submitted a proposal in 1963 for a TV show, and Hogan's Heroes came along in 1965. They took them to court, and it was settled quietly out of court, which again suggests there was something to their claim. It's also not that difficult to draw a line between this particular film and its subject matter and films like MASH, which initially was a film and went on to be a TV show. So in that way, it was a template for telling, sometimes difficult stories in a very comedic way. War films, as an example. So, the reason I like this film: Billy Wilder, fantastic director, wonderful storyteller, very funny, very moving film. Great performances by William Holden in particular, but also Otto Preminger does a great job, as do a lot of the minor characters in the film. Beautifully shot, very authentic looking, a film that you'll really enjoy. So what I'll ask you to do is go along to our website. Again, find the link, click on it, watch the film, see what you think, and by all means come back and let us know your thoughts, whether you would encourage other people to watch the film also. And then we'll see you again in the not too distant future for another Classic Films review.